This is Quentin Nelson. Just got done kicking it with the boys. Make sure you list and subscribe.
Training camp time for the Indianapolis Colts. I'm Kevin Bowen. Back from Grand Park. Wednesday afternoon, we're coming at you. Report day for the Colts. Wrapped up earlier this morning. Their first practice Thursday afternoon. First preseason game 2 weeks from tomorrow, which is really hard to believe. Still 6 weeks away, a little bit over 6 weeks away from the season opener. But summer vacation is officially over. Joey, how'd it feel, man, to get out to Grand Park?
Well, it felt like the first day of school for a lot of reasons, but one of them being that we're wearing the exact same outfit.
Awkward.
Didn't plan it, but we were those guys.
As I told you this morning, I pulled the shirt out of the closet. I'm a big lay out the clothes the night before guy.
Found that out yesterday. Wow.
Yeah, judge or join, but probably a lot of judgment from our listeners there. But yeah, I pulled out the shirt from the closet. I'm thinking to myself, I know Joey owns this shirt. I know we've done this before. Should I text him? I said, blanket. We're good. We'll see what happens. And sure enough, you come up to me this morning at Grand Park. I'm kind of stationed on my laptop, and you're like, dude, we're wearing the same shirt.
Yep, biggest nerds ever. But no, it was a beautiful day. So exciting to be back out there. Honestly, feels like we didn't really leave. Really,
I know. Yeah, it is. It does have an eerie feeling like the Ravens just got done with joint practices there, and we're closing up shop. So today's podcast, we'll hit on the major news items from Report Day. Chris Ballard talked to the media for, what was that, probably nearly 20 minutes. A long media session with him, and I always enjoy those conversations. We'll hit on several of the big takeaways from that. We'll touch on storylines for camp. We'll obviously do Twitter questions, and we'll lead off with the Andrew Luck and just other injury updates. But a few quick mentions I wanted to get to before we start the meat of our podcast. One, on last week's podcast, Joey, I said that the last time the Colts had a kick return for a touchdown was 2012. I forgot about Jordan Todman opening kick in Lambeau.
Yep.
Do you remember that?
2016.
Yeah. Honestly, that might have been top 2 or 3 biggest wins of the Grigson-Pagano era in terms of regular season. That was a very rocky, it ended up being an 8-8 season, but you go up to Lambeau and win a game, sparked by Jordan Todman early on. I think Luck threw a couple early picks in that game, and you ended up getting behind a bit, and Aaron Rodgers was definitely not his normal self. But how could I forget Jordan Todman opening kick return for a TD in Lambeau in 2016?
Yeah, probably because it was one of those years where they were 3-5 going into that game. A lot of people probably thought this is the nail in the coffin. 3-6, tough. And but they were up 24-10 at half, Kevin. And they ended up winning. The Colts were, and they ended up winning 31-26.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, kind of a big second quarter, or maybe late first quarter into the second quarter, where they were able to build a big lead. But yeah, that's something that I feel like we wanted to just mention. Deji Kareem, was the one that I referenced back in 2012. It still has been since 2012 for a punt return. But yeah, in terms of kick return, 2016 Jordan Todman. And then a couple quick shout-outs. Had Tyler tweet at me saying that his 9-year-old son Jacob and him were about to board a flight to Indy from San Francisco, and little Jacob asked to download Kevin's Corner.
Wow, 9 years old. Good for you. Starting him young.
Maybe we should clean up a little bit of that language we do slip in there.
Nah, I think it's good for the young fella.
All right.
Yeah, he's got to learn sometime.
Jacob can handle it.
Yeah.
9 years old, he can handle it.
Jacob, you're a few years away from middle school.
I feel like every 9-year-old says that one cuss word, and the parent's like, whoa, wait till you're at least 12 or 13.
And when you're 9 years old, you can't wait to be with all your little friends in a basement just to be able to say whatever the hell you want.
Exactly. Oh, boom. There you go. Right on cue there, Joey Molinaro. And then this one from Adam. Adam says, hey, man, don't have a Twitter question, but do you think next podcast you give a shout-out to the military? I'm stationed on the USS Cole, and I know I listen to 1070 and your content damn near daily. It's the thing that makes me feel like I'm still home. I've talked to friends in the military that are from Indiana, and they feel the same way. It'd mean a lot to the Hoosiers who aren't home. If not, no worries. Thanks for your time. Wow. I'd say the least we could do is to give a shout out and more importantly, give thanks. And as Joey claps, some gratitude to everyone, Colts fans, Patriots fans, I don't care who you are, a fan of, for your service. So, Adam, glad to offer a bit of a break and able to remind you a little bit of home. So wanted to get those in there before we started the pod, man.
Absolutely, no doubt. Same. My regards, the same as yours, obviously.
For
So that's awesome. Love to hear it. But let's get back to the here and now, Kevin. What's going on? Training camp, Grand Park. We got there today thinking that Andrew Luck was going to talk, and we didn't hear from Andrew Luck.
We did not, which was a bit odd. Earlier in the week, we're thinking Chris Ballard's talking on Monday, Frank Reich and Andrew Luck talk on Wednesday, like every head coach and quarterback usually talk on report day. In fact, this is the first time Andrew Luck has not talked on report day in his NFL career. Even when he had the shoulder issues 2 years ago where he missed all of training camp, he still talked on report day. So basically the update on Luck is this. Him, along with a handful of guys, will be worked slowly back into training camp, slowly back into practice, ramp them up to full speed. And I think there are a couple of reasons for this. For one, with Luck specifically, they're going to be extra cautious at any point of the offseason when you don't need to push the pedal to the metal because our season opener is September 8th, not August 8th or July 30th. You have time. So I think this is probably a Luck and Colts mutual decision. And then I thought it was interesting that Ballard mentioned that the NFL, along with the Colts, have done some studies and that a lot of injuries in camp occur during this, I think, acclimation period was what Ballard called it, this 7 to 10 day window to where guys haven't had a real practice outside of what you do in the spring, in nearly 9 months. So it's just kind of, all right, ease it. Let's slowly get back into things. And so Luck is on that list. Deion Kane is on that list. Jack Doyle, Clayton Geathers, Ross Travis, Carol Phillips. I don't think I'm missing anyone besides that. I don't know. Did I say Ross Travis?
Yeah.
So, Travis and Kane are coming off the ACLs. Obviously, we saw Clayton Geathers on a pitch count during late last season, definitely on a practice pitch count, and we didn't see him participate in the spring as well. Jack Doyle dealing with that hip. So,
but to be clear, Ballard said that, there's no, he's fine. Luck is good. We're just gradually.
Exactly. Luck specifically, he's done some live throwing. Now, T.Y. Hilton said he hasn't thrown with Andrew Luck since the Kansas City game. We didn't get a chance to ask Luck today, if he's thrown with Devin Funchess or Paris Campbell or anyone that you would want him to throw with during the summer break. But he's done live throwing. The arm looks good. And those are kind of Ballard's words there. So, these guys are all able to practice. I assume they all will practice to some degree on Thursday, but I just don't think we know how full throttle they will be. Honestly, Joey, as we sit here right now on the eve of training camp, this is the best, most healthy the Colts have been in years entering training camp. Before we tape this podcast, they just announced Reese Fountain is off the NFI list. He had rolled his ankle a few weeks back. Chris Ballard had mentioned he was going to come off that list at any point. They put Spencer Ware on PUP. Spencer Ware, which is great news for Jordan Wilkins. Spencer Ware is going to miss 1 to 2 weeks. Sounded like Ballard was more on the back end of that 2-week timetable with a muscle injury. That's it. That's the only guy that you've ruled out for tomorrow. Right. It's just Spencer Ware. He's the only one on the physically unable to perform list, and all that means is you can keep them on that list potentially for the start of the regular season, and they could come off at any time. Anthony Costanzo, he was on the non-football injury list this time last year after hurting his hamstring, training on his own. So, as I look back 365 days ago, not only did Costanzo not practice day one, Clayton Geathers and Malik Hooker were over on that rehab field for about the first 2-ish weeks.
Yep.
You go in tomorrow, your third-string running back is the only guy that looks like won't suit up for practice. And again, you're going to bring these guys slowly along. Kane and Travis especially. Maybe we only see them in individual drills. Gethers, where is he at from a pitch count standpoint? Same thing with Jack Doyle. And we'll see what the actual workload looks like for Andrew Luck. I'm not sure how you would handle necessarily a calf injury.
Could there be some of those guys that they're trying to work in that don't practice at all tomorrow? But it's not to be a caution. I mean, it's not to be worried about. It's just to be precautionary.
Yeah, that is a good point. And, my thinking is, do you have individual drills for them Thursday? Do you ramp it up a little bit Friday? And then do you give them Saturday totally off? Is it a 2-day on, 1-day off sort of thing?
Yeah.
We'll have to look at that tomorrow. And that's why I wish selfishly Frank Reich would have talked today. It would have been nice to get him more an idea of, okay, I want Andrew to do these individual drills tomorrow. I want him to do one team session on. Jacoby Brissett is the team session off. Or Jacoby Brissett then takes Andrew Luck's place in that starting 11 for the second team session or something like that.
Yeah.
So we'll get some more clarity hopefully tomorrow afternoon when Luck and Reich are going to meet the media after that first afternoon practice. But again, I can't reiterate it enough. This is probably the healthiest the Colts have been entering a training camp in a long, long time. And one of the storylines that I do have for this camp is just, it's almost out of your control, but it's healthy sparring. So you want to spar. Chris Ballard says he wants the physicality and the intensity of practice, the full padded look to practice, to be exactly how it looked last year. And I think you benefited in the trenches. Your O-line and your D-line, I think, benefited from a ramped-up, full padded look to training camp. But how can you do that and also be healthy at the same time? It's impossible to achieve that. But last year, the Colts really, they achieved that. Think about it. Anthony Costanzo got hurt before training camp started, and then he started tweaking it over and over again. Deion Kane gets hurt in a preseason game. Anthony Walker is the one guy that got hurt in training camp and ended up missing the opener. Marlon Mack hurt in a preseason game. So from a training camp practice standpoint, the Colts are pretty even and we're in a pretty good bill of health this time last year throughout how training camp played out in their 15 or 16 practices at Grand Park. So we'll see if they can try and achieve the same thing this year.
It's pretty wild being there once Chris Ballard decided to talk after all the players were finished with their media. And just having it be such an open kind of casual environment with Chris up there at Grand Park.
Yeah, it definitely was. It's something where we saw last year Chris Ballard did something similar, but it was more of a, hey, here's a tour of Grand Park. Mm-hmm. Let's get the Andrew Luck convo out of the way. Let's get the other injury situations out of the way. Again, I don't love it that Andrew Luck and Frank Reich didn't talk today because I think from a news cycle standpoint, that would have helped, us out. And I always like getting the head coach on day one because you can ask them, all right, what are you saying in your team meetings? What are your kind of big focuses going into camp? And then once you get them after practice, like tomorrow, you ask them about
up on it. Yeah.
Practice specific stuff and stuff that actually happens on the practice field. But we got Chris Ballard today, and I would say a couple of things stood out to me, Joey. Let's first start big picture before we get into where he talks about position battles, because I thought the position battle stuff was really, really good. Mm-hmm. But the big picture stuff is this. We had heard from Jim Irsay a lot during the offseason about you got to learn from the Kansas City loss. You have to learn from that. You can't do what the 2014, 2015 regime and seasons turned into. Chuck Pagano and Ryan Grigson failed to learn from getting your ass kicked in the AFC title game. The Bill Polian era, it took them a while to learn. 03, you get to the AFC title game, and then 04 and 05, you don't get there, but you come up short, and then all of a sudden it's 06, here's the Super Bowl. So I think it took 6 years to win a playoff game, and it took ultimately, I think, 9 years to win a Super Bowl. They learned. They didn't learn right away. It's difficult to learn right away. I mean, the NFL is filled with parity. But what I liked from Ballard today was just acknowledging that Kansas City loss was, and in Ballard's words as well, you got your ass whipped. Mm-hmm. And how do you make sure the quote that really stands out to me is, I don't want to be a momentum team. That was the phrase that Ballard used. And I like that. And I think Ballard gets it. I think Frank Wright gets it. Jim Irsay gets it. To have sustained success, you can't be going 1-5 and the schedule to play out the way it did. And yes, you played really good football, but you played some pretty shitty quarterbacks as well.
Right.
So I like that. Ballard also mentioned, I don't ever want us to have any kind of institutional arrogance for where we think we have it made. Institutional arrogance. Not a phrase you hear echoed by probably many general managers in the NFL, but it makes sense. You never want to feel like you're comfortable or, we can rest. We're good. We're going to win 12 games year in and year out. New England has given people a very false misconception of what it's like to be in the NFL. And the Colts achieved, from a regular season standpoint, they got to that peak in the 2000s. But since then, it's been difficult, and it's tough to sustain long-term success.
A lot of that, though, 2014 or 2015, 2016, those teams, like you said, that stands out immediately when he says that.
And obviously, Andrew Luck's injury plays into that, but I don't think you were built as a team to withstand. I mean, New England, when Brady missed a year, they still went 10-6. I just don't think you're built to withstand that significant of an injury. And it's going to take time. I mean, Chris Ballard has only been a general manager for 3 years, but I just like Ballard publicly stating that, like, okay, you've got to learn from that Kansas City loss, because Jim Irsay, I thought, has done a great job all offseason long in stating that. And I thought when we heard Ballard initially talk after the season, it was more of, can you believe what we did? Like, we came back from 1-5. We overachieved. We exceeded expectations. Those can all be true, and they are true. But now you got to learn. And I think it was just good. And part of that is just the raw emotion of a season ending, and you're still in the month of January, whereas here we are, July 24th. You've had a lot of time to sit back and reflect. And it goes back to the Ed Dodds great line that he had in the Colts War Room series, or with the Next Pick series, of he looks at all the scouts either at the Senior Bowl or at the Combine, and he's like, we won a bleeping wild card game. We haven't done shit.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, and at the end of the day, you really haven't, but you're very young in this rebuild. So I thought that was good from Ballard. He loves his roster, and I've said it on this podcast so many times over the past couple months, Joey, embrace the expectations. And that's exactly what Ballard said today. Don't run from it. Like, expectations are good. Mm-hmm. High expectations are not some, no, that means everyone thinks, or a large majority of people think, you're going to be good. And I thought Ballard, not wanting to run from that, again, not wanting to be a momentum team, wants to be a team that is just damn good. Like, you don't need to ride the ups and downs and the ebbs and flows of a season. Yes, you're going to hit some roadblocks, but over the course of 16 weeks, you're just good. You have talent, you work together, you buy into what your coaches are talking about, all those things. So from the big picture stuff, I like the tone that Ballard was talking today.
The next thing that was brought up a lot was just about, and you mentioned it, the position battles, what we can look for, what he thinks or where he thinks his roster is going to play out, being the most competitive over the next month or so during camp.
Yeah, and in typical Chris Ballard fashion, he started in the trenches. So let's look there. O-line and D-line, we know the starting five on the offensive line. Mm-hmm. That's not going to change. But he alluded to depth, and he listed the 6th, the 7th, the 8th, the 9th, and the 10th man on that offensive line. And for those of you that have listened to this podcast before, and when we've done 53-man roster looks, I've always done 9 offensive linemen. And I've always thrown out the caveat, like, I know Chris Ballard probably wants at least 10. Probably 10 is that definite number that he wants in the O-line. I've always said, can you get by with 9 if you're really healthy? I think you can. I don't know if Chris Ballard believes that as well. And the name that he threw out there was a name that I was not expecting him to throw out, but LaRaven Clark, as a guy, has had a nice spring. And we'll see what happens.
When the pads come on, yeah.
Right. When the pads come on, and, maybe this is unfair, but I've always thought LaRaven Clark is just, and you never want to use the word soft, Joey, but I don't know. Just when you're talking about offensive linemen, I think he can uptick his physicality and just his tenacity and just playing with a mean streak. And I know not all offensive linemen have that. Some guys, they have it for 23 hours or 21 hours on a Sunday afternoon, but then for 3 hours, they can flip a switch. But I wanted to see Clark be a little meaner. And it's a contract year. He was a former third-round pick. Initially, Chris Ballard felt very good about him. He was a starter. Hell, was he your starter coming into camp last year? At right tackle, you had so many right tackles.
Austin Brown experiment.
Austin Howard.
Yeah. Whoops.
Yeah, hell, trust me. I tried to forget his name as well. It was something to where, and this just goes back to training camp. Last year at this time, LaRaven Clark was thought to possibly be a starter, and so was Terrell Basham. Terrell Basham didn't make it to
a lot can change, folks.
Mid-October.
Yeah.
So that's something just to keep in mind throughout the next few weeks. But, where is Clark as your backup at left tackle? Because as I've stated before, no position drops off more from starter to backup than left tackle.
Mm-hmm.
And, he threw out the name Antonio Garcia, Joe Haig, some other backups. Obviously, I think you throw in Evan Boehm, Josh Andrews in the interior. In terms of defensive line, maybe it was just kind of just a slip of the tongue, but I did find it odd he didn't mention Kamoko Turi when talking about the young defensive linemen. He talked about Al-Qadim Muhammad, Gary Green, the draft pick, Ben Banogu, of course, the other draft pick as well, but didn't mention Turi. But just watching the depth play out with that group, I think will be really, really interesting. And then wideout.
Mm-hmm.
Did you walk away from there the same impression that I had? I just walked away thinking to myself, his love for Deion Kane grows infinitely every single day, especially these last 2 days.
Yeah, he was bullish to say the least. He kind of gave one of those when I forget, maybe I don't know who asked, but when they did, he kind of just like stopped and looked at him and kind of one of those like like, let me tell you, man. Like,
I'm so glad that's how you described it, because body language was everything to me right then and there.
Yeah.
I was transcribing the quote earlier today, and he talks about, first he gushes about Zach Pascal, which I thought was notable. Pascal is a guy that I've thought is probably like your sixth wideout right now. I've always thought he's ahead of Reese Fountain. And he gives you the special teams element. And then Chris Ballard just talked about how unselfish of a player he is, how we really thought he played good football for them last year. He was a June waiver claim.
Forgot about that.
Yeah, he's somebody that you really didn't think much of coming into camp. And he becomes a kick returner, and I thought made some big plays in your offense late in that season. So Pascal's a name we definitely should not rule out, and he's probably more of an outside receiver than Chester Rogers. Rogers is your inside slot, and then what you get with Pascal is maybe more of an outside guy. So after gushing about Zach Pascal, he then moves on to Deion Kane. And Ballard paused, and as I was transcribing it, I was looking down at the timer counter. I bet for 7 or 8 seconds. And the only word he said was just, as he's shaking his head and almost laughing, just like, man. And then he goes into how Deion Kane's worked, which is all fine and well, over the past year, coming back from the ACL, and, feels like sometimes it takes a setback to kind of realign where a guy's thinking is. And yes, comparing his setback to Andrew Luck's setback is a bit unfair. And maybe Deion Kane needed something a little bit more, considering there was a reason why he dropped to the 6th round in the 2018 NFL draft, considering the type of resume he put up in college, which was pretty darn impressive. But then what really stood out to me was Ballard ends the quote with, we will limit him here early on, coming back from the ACL, but the last 2 days here have been pretty fun to watch. I interpret that as the last 2 days, meaning Deion Kane's worked out,
Right.
Quarterbacks come in early. You've put him out there in some sort of route tree, and he looks like a guy that Chris Ballard and the Colts believe would have been maybe the most talented guy in the 2019 draft in terms of receiver. So, as if we needed any more like gasoline thrown on the Deion Kane hype fire, I just felt like Chris Ballard, threw a little bit more on it today.
Yeah.
How he looks in a practice setting, in a non-red jersey setting, in full pads, when you can't be tentative and guys are going to hit you and the unknown is there, that's a different story. But, Deion Kane is one of my storylines to watch, obviously. And it goes back to what we've talked about so many times, Joey, with this wideout group. 4 guys are locks, in my opinion. T.Y. Hilton, Paris Campbell, Deion Kane, and Devin Funchess. And then does that leave one spot for Zach Pascal, Chester Rogers, Reese Fountain?
Have at it.
So.
Yeah.
Anything else from Ballard stand out to you?
Maybe just briefly the Costanzo extension.
Yeah. I asked him about Anthony Costanzo, any updates on the contract extension. I didn't expect Ballard to give us much, but I think it's a question you have to ask, because the next time we hear from Chris Ballard will be after the season's over, maybe in a media session. Basically said, I'm not going to tell you anything, even if there was something, but and I'm paraphrasing here, the whole line of, how I feel about good players that work hard. And at some point in that press conference, he mentioned Anthony Costanzo as a guy that is one of our best players who works as one of our hardest workers.
Right.
So
I believe the phrase was, we always have a line in the water.
Yes, that was good. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Always have a line in the water. And then, he threw on the end of that about the hardworking guys and wanting to reward their own. So
between the lines.
Anthony Costanzo being a Colt in 2019, I think seems to be trending in the right direction.
Well, you mentioned the storylines that you have up on 1075thefan.com. There's 6 of them. We're going to go through a few of them here. And we'll start with coming off of the wide receiver discussion, the defensive line discussion, open jobs that are going to be up for grabs in this training camp.
Yeah, Joey, on paper, there's just not a lot of purely open jobs. But as I mentioned last year, Terrell Basham was your starter the entire spring offseason program. He gets into camp, and by the end of week 1, it was like, all right, Marcus Hunt's going to start.
Dude can't play.
Yeah. And so that's why it was a question if he was even going to make your 53-man roster. Jobs that are open, I don't know. I guess the Mike linebacker is open. I still think Anthony Walker is the favorite over Bobby Okereke. Now, maybe Okereke is a guy that plays on passing downs, and Anthony Walker is more of your rundown guy. I've gotten a couple questions in the past few weeks that, what about Okereke maybe playing the Sam linebacker position? So then you would get all 3 of your top linebackers, quote unquote, on the field at the same time. So that'd be Darius Leonard, Anthony Walker, Bobby Okereke, leave Ben Banogu at defensive end. I guess my question entering camp is, what does the Sam linebacker look like for the Colts in 2019? I'm not saying who, I'm saying what. What does that position look like? How often are they even going to use it? Do they play nickel 85, 90% of the snaps? I think that's a fair question to ask, just because based off the spring, we didn't really see a whole lot. And now I know when you get into more run game specific stuff in camp, you're going to play a Sam linebacker. Where I disagree with some, people being like, oh, Okereke's just going to play the Sam. He'll be out there on early downs when you are in your base defense. That's not really his strength. His strength is as a passing down linebacker, not as a run down linebacker. So I think that's where Matthew Adams, still comes into play. Right. Shout out to Matthew Adams. Sounds like he had a big party at Revel on Saturday night.
Really?
You see that?
No.
Yeah.
Where's that coming through?
He had a little Insta story action.
Mm-hmm.
Promoting the event. So, I think it was the last bash before camp.
Did you go?
I was not there.
No?
No,
okay.
I was not.
Yeah.
Yeah. but I'm sure it was a good time.
Yeah, probably had a few ex-girlfriends that were there from me.
Jeez.
Not you, myself.
Yeah, you had me sweating there for a little bit. Outside of Mike linebacker, Joey, nickel package, Rocky Sin and Quincy Wilson, we've mentioned that before. Who rounds out that group?
Yeah.
I think those two are competing for the third corner spot. Offensively at the skill, how does the wideout group play out behind Hilton and Funchess? What's 3, 4, and 5 look like? How do you handle your running back reps? The Spencer Ware injury, I think, is notable. Jordan Wilkins, this is time. Make a strong impression. And Jonathan Williams, we're going to see him. Chris Ballard's crush. What does he show early on in camp as well? And then tight end wise, is Mo Alley Cox a guy that's just too good to keep off the field? Do you play 3 tight end sets? I mean, might sound crazy. So yeah, all those things will be kind of open jobs, or maybe not necessarily starting jobs, Joey. But when you talk about a nickel, you talk about, a third wideout, that's pretty much your 12th starter on defense or 12th starter on offense. So those are significant roles.
You mentioned specifically with the Sam position on defense, how that could be. We don't really know what it is yet, but also how's the defense going to be evolving coming into this year?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. What does the Sam look like as an element that I'll be watching for on defense? What does your pass rush group look like? We know the starting defensive line in the base. A bunch of 30-year-olds or guys right around that age. Jabal Sheard, Marcus Hunt, Danico Autry, Justin Houston. Third down comes. Lucas Oil crowd rises.
The IndyCar package.
Yeah, IndyCar package. Is a Lucas Oil crowd good? Is the home crowd good?
Yeah, I think so.
I think it can be better.
I think when the wave is riding high, they're riding high too. But when it's a low tide, then you don't really have a lot going.
You can't go first half wave.
What do you mean?
Like doing the wave.
Oh, you're talking about the actual. I was talking about like if the Colts are rolling.
I got you. You're
the home crowd
wave.
is crazy.
Yeah.
But if the Colts are in 2017, early 2018 Colts, everybody's kind of like, I guess we can just go to the Bud Light zone.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Especially if that window's open. I found it interesting today that Ballard talked about how until he became Colts GM and he started to realize what that job meant, he started to be more open in giving access to fans. Did you catch that in that last question?
Yeah.
I think Heather Lloyd asked that. Asked about training camp being open, but I also think from the behind the scenes stuff that we're
right.
seeing, and maybe it's because you're in a market where I just think Kansas City's fan base is probably a little bit more rabid. In terms of outside, it seems like Arrowhead's one of the best places to play. Maybe you took that for granted, and with the Colts, it's like, all right, got to invest a little bit. This NFL team has only been in the city for 30 years, 35 years, which I know might seem like a long time, but it's not really. So, basically what I'm getting at, going back to, God, I got really off track there. IndyCar package. Justin Houston, Danico Autry, Joey, to me are locks.
Yeah.
I mean, Autry had, 9 sacks in 12 games? It's an incredible number. Houston has got to be out there. Is Tyquan Lewis in the mix? Is Jihad Ward in the mix? Is one of your young rushers? You hear about Banigou, and he mentioned today how he worked out with Robert Mathis, during the month of July.
I found it interesting how when asked about what that experience was like, he said it was different. When he said that, I was like, huh.
Yeah, that resonated with me as well. And I guess it's different in just like, couple things stood out, I guess. Banigou mentioned how it's very player specific with the pass rush moves, very speed driven with the pass rush moves. He's teaching him, to stab and to chop and all those, fancy little pass rush words.
Yeah.
But maybe the ex-player, that aspect of it is why it's different. I don't know Mike Fair, the defensive line coach. Can't say I know his playing background, but I'm willing to bet he didn't lead an NFL franchise in career sacks.
Just because, right, but just because usually, the canned answer for so many people is, Oh, it was great. It was great.
Right,
Learning from a guy
right.
like that, it was great. And so then when you say different, I mean, I appreciate the honesty if that's
For
what
sure.
it was, but it just kind of caught the ear differently.
Yeah, and I love the candidness, and that'll be something hopefully we can tap a little bit more into. But, to me, it's like, doesn't Banigou, isn't he a lock for third down? Lock is probably too aggressive, but like when he was drafted, it's like he's going to play on third down no matter what. We don't really know what linebacker looks like in the hybrid DN role, but he's going to play on third down. So then it's like, all right, if you got Banigou out there, you got Houston out there, you have Autry out there, is Kamoko Turi, Al-Qadim Muhammad, is Jabal Shear just too valuable of a guy to take off the field? So what does the NASCAR IndyCar package look like? And I guess just other defensive evolving stuff. This time last year, it was who the hell's going to play D-end?
Mm-hmm.
Who the hell's going to play corner?
Yep.
What do your linebackers look like? We've never seen Darius Leonard practice.
You reminded me today that he wasn't even signed at this point.
Wasn't even
last year.
signed. And then all of a sudden, things start to fall into place. Kenny Moore here, Marcus Hunt here. Oh my gosh, Darius Leonard just picked off Andrew Luck. He looks really good.
Mm-hmm.
He is really good. Now it's, you bring back 11 starters. You add Justin Houston. You have this Banigou guy. You have Rock Yassin. Clayton Geathers and Malik Hooker are healthy, or pretty close to healthy. Like, now I feel like, okay, where do you evolve? Matt Eberflus, talk to me. What are you doing? Are you blitzing more? More man coverage? Are you disguising things? Yeah, I thought Darius Leonard had a great little anecdote about him and Patrick Mahomes bro hugging after the game. Dap, I believe Dap is what you call it.
Yeah, dap up.
Dapping after the game in Kansas City, and Mahomes, saying to him, hey man, I can't wait to play against you for years to come. And Darius Leonard saying today how he looks back on that game and thinks Patrick Mahomes called out everything pre-snap. He knew exactly what we were doing. And that goes back to, we're going to be simple. We're going to play with effort. Okay, that's fine and well, but that ain't Cody Kessler in the shotgun.
Mm-hmm.
That's Patrick freaking Mahomes,
Yeah.
the MVP of the league. And Leonard said today, I need a disguise. I need to be better pre-snap. So I think those are some of the things that it's not going to be as black and blue as, oh, he's running with the first team. He's not. We're going to have to look, through our lenses a little bit. But that'll be something to watch from a defensive standpoint.
Then today we heard from Ben Banigou. I don't think we heard from any of the other rookies.
Yeah, it was kind of a sorry group of players outside of T.Y. Hilton and Darius Leonard.
Right. We heard from Ben Banigou, but the rookies are always, you're going to have your eye on them during training camp.
Always, Joey. And right now, I'm not willing to bet that any of them start. I'm not willing to bet that any of them are a 16-game starter. Sure, Paris Campbell is going to play a huge role. Sure, Rock Ya-Sin is going to play a really big role. Ben Banigou. I mean, those three guys, potentially, they could be your first three guys off the bench.
Mm-hmm.
Campbell is the third wideout. Yassin as your nickel package corner, and Banigou as your top rusher coming off the bench on third down. But I don't know if they're going to be 16-game starters. What does Kari Willis show? Bobby Okereke, he's another name as well. And when we get into it, this is a little bit deeper into the 90-man roster, but it's something I wrote on 1070 or 1075thefan.com. For those of you who don't know, we are rebranding 1075thefan.com. It's going to take me
on the website.
It's going to take me 10 weeks to get that right, man. I started through it on the YouTube video today, and I'm probably going to do it a lot.
It's all right.
I mentioned this last week on the website. Undrafted free agent. Does any of them make the roster? You got 7 of them right now.
If they do, that probably means bad news for a couple of the draft picks, right?
Probably means that, and it probably means there's a notable injury somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
If I had to bet, that kid from Alabama, Hale Hentges, the tight end. He still is a name that kind of pops into my mind of like, is he that blocker? I mean, he caught I think he had 15 catches max in his career at Alabama. So, he was blocking. Is he your Ryan Hewitt? Where's Ross Travis at when he comes back? So still deciding that tight end position is up in the air. But, most years you've averaged 2 to 3 undrafted free agents on your week one roster. Sky Moore started for you week one last year as an undrafted guy. I mean, the days of Luchez Purifoy and Kenny Moore was on your week one roster as an undrafted guy. George Odom last year. R.I.P. Zerlon Tipton was an undrafted free agent. I don't know if he made the week one roster, but he definitely was on it.
He passed away?
Yeah, Zerlon Tipton. Yeah.
When was that?
A couple years ago. Wow. Yeah. I mean, he was your backup for that AFC title run.
Yeah.
Which is crazy to think about. So, it's a team, the Colts have done a great job in signing undrafted free agents, and really a lot of them being impactful guys.
Yeah.
But when you look at this list, it's a bit cloudy to me.
All right, you want to hop into some first training camp Twitter questions?
Ooh, I like it.
All right, let's start things off here with Jared. He wants to know, do you think Marlon Mack, could be a top 10 back in the league after this year?
Ooh, wow. Yeah, I think it's possible. You're probably in the 8, 9, 10 range, right around there. But, if you look at his yards per game from last year, Joey, he was 6th in the NFL, rushing yards per game.
Mm-hmm.
That's notable. It doesn't catch a whole lot of balls out of the backfield, so that might scare some fantasy owners away. But if you're talking kind of pure running back, I think Marlon Mack can be an 1,100, 1,200-yard guy. The biggest thing for him is just simply health, and that's virtually true of every running back in the NFL, and unfortunately, that it can be a cloud that hangs over a lot of runners in this league. Nyheim Hines and Jordan Wilkins, I'm pretty sure they played every game last year for you. Now, Wilkins was a guy that didn't play a whole lot late in the season. But, yeah, I think Marlon Mack can be in that 8, 9, or 10 range. He's talked about the big step for him is just no more shoelace tackles, shoestring tackles. You're kind of yards after contact, making that more of an emphasis, which I think when you are a speed guy like he's known for, I think that is fair to be the next step. Because when you look at him, I mean, you've seen him in person, he's a well-built running back.
For sure.
He's 6 foot, 200 pounds, something like that. So, yeah, I think those are the next areas of improvement for him.
Man, when Big Q is pulling and Max getting that handoff, it's a thing of beauty. It really, really is. From Cody Felger, what are the 3 major improvements of Grand Park compared to Anderson? And what's something that you miss about going to Anderson for training camp?
Good to hear from Cody Felger.
Yeah.
He was complaining on Twitter last week that his question hasn't been getting in on time.
Sorry, dude.
Cody, come on now.
Once a week.
DMs are always open.
Right.
Not for people trying to holler late at night.
Going to Matthew Adams' party at Rebel.
Right. None of that. But if you got Twitter questions, DMs are wide open.
There you go.
The biggest difference between Grand Park and Anderson, Joey, I like Anderson. I like it a lot. I love the feel of training camp up there. I think there's something about going to a remote, small college to a town that unfortunately has gone through some tough times, but nothing can compare to the facilities at Grand Park. It's as Chris Ballard said today, it's the best in the NFL. And I've heard that from a lot of NFL people that go to various camps. I think I counted on the map today as we were waiting for players. 26 baseball diamonds, Joey. 31 soccer fields / football fields. Think about that. One property, you have 26 baseball or softball diamonds, 31 soccer or football fields, and you have 3 indoor fields. Like, you've been in that field house. That indoor field house is huge.
Mm-hmm. And it's not like these fields are just slapped together. No, I mean, they're the nicest of the nice.
State of the art. The Colts can operate out of there in terms of, what they need to do from a office standpoint, training room, training table, eating, medical, all that stuff. They can do right there on site. So the facilities are second to none. The indoor aspect, I would say, is the biggest difference. Cody wants me to name 3.
What do they do up there? They just go in like Anderson's gym and have walkthroughs, or what do they do?
It was bad. It was you go into Anderson's field house. They're like basketball field house, and you have a walkthrough. And I mean, there was a couple times at practice. I remember we got to like 11 a.m. and all of a sudden, here come all the buses, board them up. They're heading back to the facility for an indoor practice if there was inclement weather, scheduled.
God, players must have loved that inclement weather.
Well,
Holy.
Can you imagine the operations people having to load all that shit onto the, buses?
No, I mean, it's terrible for everybody else but the players.
Yeah, right. And I think what's cool also about Grand Park, there are so many cool things, obviously, but just fans can come inside and watch the indoor practice. You can only get, probably maybe 500?
Maybe.
Yeah, that's
I was
going
to say like 250.
Yeah, that's stretching it probably. That sounds like a
200.
Yeah, that sounds like a generous PR release number that I just sent out there. 18,000 tonight at Bankers Life to watch the Colts to watch the Pacers and Magic play on a Tuesday in December. Stop it.
Yeah.
But the indoor aspect, Joey, on site is obviously speaks for itself, but then also being able to have fans there. Now, one thing that I hate about Grand Park is this. It's centrally located in a very affluent suburb of Indianapolis. And I think what I hate about it is in Anderson, you aren't in some affluent suburb, and you're a little bit northeast of the city. For those that don't know, it's about an hour, 45 minutes northeast of downtown Indianapolis. And I think you're getting people from that section of the state, northern part of the state, that can't get all the way down to Grand Park, can't get all the way down to Lucas Oil Stadium, and can't afford the absurdity of a preseason ticket or a regular season ticket. Training camp is free. I think maybe there's a fee for parking, but it's free. And I think you miss that in Anderson.
But you can make it a nice little staycation type of deal.
You can't, but
because Westfield has all of those accommodations.
Westfield has everything.
Yeah.
But there are people that just can't afford to even come down and spend $100 on a hotel room.
Yeah.
You can come down to Anderson and your 2-hour drive from, Angola, Indiana, all you're paying for is gas. And that's the beauty of it. Now, I think the Colts do a great job in getting off site, and that goes back to the Chris Ballard comment that I mentioned earlier. He's realized how important that is because his first year, they had camp at their own facility.
Weird.
And now they've signed a 10-year deal to be at Grand Park, and this is year 2. So, Cody, that was a lot of rambling. I don't think I answered it exactly how you wanted me to, but yeah.
I've only experienced Grand Park, so I'm kind of spoiled. I want
to
go back.
Facilities, absolutely incredible. Now, at Anderson University, the Colts pretty much just took over that college campus for 3 weeks. Staying in the dorms. I think at Grand Park they stay in the hotel, like the Cambridge or something right off site there. And it's just easier access if you need to go home. I think another advantage, too, is like if you have a guy that needs to go get an MRI or needs to go see a doctor in Indy, Westfield to Methodist or whatever is a lot quicker than...
Yeah, pretty much just a beeline down 31
I-69 and rush hour traffic can be a zoo.
Trite. I just mixed together true and right there. Holy cow. Okay. From Yash T. Hey, KB, really appreciate all the hard work. My question is, if you are Chris Ballard and you have a broad outlook of your team, would you feel happy about the progress you've made? If not, what would you do to improve it?
Oh yeah. I'd feel.
He got asked that today.
Yeah, I mean he was. Chris Ballard is not a guy that's gonna. He finds the right balance, Joey, of being humble and honest. Like he should feel good about what he's built. It's pretty darn impressive what he's assembled, and to some it might come off of like. I think he said it today. He's like, we've got a good football team.
He did.
We have got a good football team. But he also gets it he said it today. Bill Polian quote, getting from good to great might be the hardest thing to achieve in any professional sport. And I'd say the NFL more than any because it's such a parity-driven league. Lifespans for players are very, very short. It's a hard cap. All of that plays into it. So, Chris Ballard should feel good. Where could he have made a couple more improvements? I think you always say depth. Maybe I would have maybe spent a little more in free agency early on. You still spent a decent amount, trust me, with some of these extensions that now you're handing out and giving Justin Houston, Devin Funchess what you got. But It's going to be hard. If this season goes off the rails and health is in, I just don't know how much you can fault Chris Ballard. Yeah, maybe the Devin Funchess thing doesn't work out. Maybe the Justin Houston thing doesn't work out. You can look at those moves, and you can look at, should you have pursued a Landon Collins or something like that. But if I'm Chris Ballard, I'm sleeping pretty well at night.
I think I found Chris Ballard's comp in terms of his voice. I think I found it today.
Okay.
The softness of Bill Clinton and the southern draw of George Bush. The second one.
Yeah. Uh-huh. I could see that. Yeah, Bill Clinton does. Well, Clinton also, he's got a little bit of draw.
He has a little bit of southern draw.
Arkansas draw.
Right, but the Texas draw of Ballard.
Right.
I was just sitting there listening to him, and I was like, is that it? I think it might be a mix of those two, and you get Chris Ballard's voice.
Man, you really were lost at one point.
Yeah, I don't know. Like a third time somebody asked him about expectations for this year. I was like, okay, tune in out.
It got a bit redundant. And hopefully for everyone's sake, most importantly his wife's, hopefully a little bit more George Bush at home than Bill Clinton.
Yeah, I think we can agree.
That might
Politics aside.
That might be the understatement of the history of Kevin's Corner.
All right, from Max B. I have some over-unders for you, and I feel pretty good about them.
All right.
T.Y. Hilton has 1,200 yards. Almost said 12,000. Would have been easy under. Colts have 4 Pro Bowlers, and the Colts win 4 division games. Over-under.
Well, Max, to be a great over-under person, you got to go with half. Go with half numbers. 4.5 on wins in the division, 4.5 on Pro Bowlers. So we'll go ahead and insert that for him.
Okay.
12,000 yards.
1,200.5.
I've lost it today. This has been one of my worst podcasts ever.
It's been a long day. It's been a long day.
Yeah.
First day.
Yeah, I apologize, everyone. 1,200 yards. You're giving me the thumbs down.
Yeah.
1,150.
I just think you got more mouths to feed this year.
Yeah.
Not that they'll be demanding it, but it's not just the TY show anymore.
Mm-hmm. You got more mouths to feed. That's a good dad joke at work, that he.
Yeah.
He had 1,270 last year. So yeah, I'm gonna go under.
Okay.
Because he was still really consistent even when he was banged up last year.
Yeah.
Okay, 4.5 Pro Bowlers. The Pro Bowl's dumb. I'll go with under. I'll say 4.
Maybe then alternate. Maybe they won't have any because we'll be in Miami.
Good. Yeah, good point. Luck, Hilton, Nelson, Leonard. Yeah, but they probably could have it. I'll still go with under on Pro Bowlers. What's the last one? Division wins.
4 division wins.
That Taylor Lewan news is pretty significant.
Saw that. Yeah.
4-game suspension for the Titans left tackle. That means he will miss week 2 home game against the Colts. That is very, very notable and good for the Colts. I'll go under. I'll say 4-2 in the division. I think it's the best division in football.
That's 4-2 is fair.
4-2 is pretty good. I mean, that's pretty good.
Loss at Jacksonville, and
does Houston somehow beat you?
Don't they play at Houston, or is it here on Thursday night?
There on Thursday night. Football.
But also, it's still just between them and Tennessee.
Right.
It's until it happens. I mean,
yeah, I know.
Jeez.
I'll go under. Jacksonville has turned into a black hole, hasn't it?
Yeah, from Casey with a K, a lot has been made of the Colts' depth this year as compared to past years. What rotational / non-starting Colts player, other than Jacoby Brissett, do you think would start on a different NFL team?
It's a really good question. I think a lot would have to depend on what's the team. Who is the team?
Yeah.
Is it the Arizona Cardinals or the Miami Dolphins, or is it, the Chiefs or the Rams or something like that? Guys that pop into my mind, Mo Alley Cox, definitely. Paris Campbell as that third wideout. I don't think any running back. I don't think Hines is ready to be a full-time starter. Offensive line, depth-wise, I'm sure Joe Haig would start somewhere. O-line play is pretty darn bad. Defensively,
Evan Boehm?
Yeah.
No,
I can't go there just yet.
Not feeling EB.
Yeah. Defensively, Tyquan Lewis maybe. Scheme fit would be obviously paramount in all of these. Linebacker-wise, no. Corner, I would say Rock Yassin or Quincy Wilson. Safeties, I don't know if I can say Matthias Farley or George Odom with a firm stance. A lot of it depends on whose roster you handed me.
Where? From Sam, which newcomer eats into the production of a team veteran who produced at a high level last year? For me, it's Devin Funchess with Ebron and Campbell with Hines.
Yes, definitely Devin Funchess. Justin Houston, what does that do for the role of Kamoko Toure and Al-Qadim Muhammad? You didn't have a lot of what does Spencer Ware, if healthy, what does he do for Jordan Wilkins?
Mm-hmm.
What does he do potentially for Nyheim Hines? I know their skill sets are very different. I don't think he would do a lot, but something to keep an eye on. Rookie newcomers, sure, Rock Yassin and Quincy Wilson, Paris Campbell and Chester Rogers, Bobby Okereke and Anthony Walker. There are several, but I would say far less than you had in years past. When you bring back 21 and 22 starters, that kind of speaks for itself.
This is from I-74 Football. What position group on the Colts should we expect to see the biggest improvement this year?
Well, I think hopefully for the Colts' sake, it's wide out. And I think there's a good chance that it will be. That group was just so inconsistent, especially early in the season, catching the football. And, honestly, outside of that, I thought your other position groups played pretty well for you offensively. So I would say wide out. Does he ask only offense, or do you ask both sides of the ball?
Yeah, both sides. What position group?
Okay, yeah. Wide out.
From Tom, do you think the outside perspective of how good the Colts should be will be more of a positive or negative for this team?
Should be a positive, Should be, Embrace the expectations. Those are what the standards that you're going to see year in and year out moving forward. Should be a positive.
It is an odd thing about human nature that, when we have the big expectations, everybody's like, well, you're going to suck.
People are naturally pessimistic.
Yeah, jeez.
Yeah. And I think people look at it as now you're nervous. You're not playing free. You're an underdog. Underdogs play free. They just get up there and they shoot it from wherever, and they're not afraid to call trick plays. Think of Purdue in that Ohio State game last year.
Yeah.
Jeff Brom was like, screw this. Now part of that's just Jeff Brom being Jeff Brom.
To a certain extent, I agree with the underdog part, but at the same time,
I just think everyone's a pessimist.
Or just a little bitch. If you want to call it how it is.
Boy, Tyler.
Not Tyler.
Or Jacob, 9-year-old Jacob. I'm thinking about our. God.
I'm sorry.
I don't know if we've dropped that word yet.
I'm sorry.
It's been a long day.
I'm just tired of everybody. Yeah, just do it. Just go for it.
Yeah, I think you're right, honestly, in what you just said.
All right. From IU fan in Texas, what do you believe will be the biggest story coming out of camp, barring any injuries?
That's hard for me to say. Injury, I feel like at every camp, injury ends up being the biggest storyline.
Yeah.
You left camp last year and you're like, Anthony Costanzo, Marlon Mack. Oh my gosh, that's notable. So injury is always it. But where's Deion Kane? Add in the wideout group. How does Devin Funchess look with Andrew Luck? Do you feel good about LaRaven Clark at left tackle or whoever your backup left tackle is? How does that IndyCar package look? How much does the defense evolve? Those are all storylines. I guess Funchess and Luck, along with what your pass rush group looks like, those would be atop my list.
You mentioned it a little bit earlier about Taylor Lewan, but Lucas Robbins says, with Taylor Lewan likely suspended for the Colts Week 2 game against Tennessee, what's your prediction for how many sacks the Colts will get on Mariota/Tannehill?
Let's go with set the over at 3.5. Mariota can escape.
Yeah.
Although, didn't he? I feel like they sacked him a ton this past year at Lucas Oil Stadium.
3.5, the over-under?
Set the over at 3.5.
Okay. From Benji, best training camp entrance for past or current player?
What do you think of Jalen Ramsey today?
I tweeted, pretty epic entrance for just going 7-9. Like there's a lot of fanfare with it and everything. I get it, but not a big camp entrance guy. I think that's PTSD from Antonio Brown. But
I love him. Let's have fun a little.
Yeah, I mean, I get it, but I think
get off my lawn.
I'm not being get off my lawn guy. I think that like what Eric Ebron did today was fun. That was fun.
Yeah.
He dressed it up as Dustin from Stranger Things, Camp Nowhere. It was Camp Ty. Love it. All good. For it.
Yeah.
T.Y. Hilton wearing his hat and his shirt with the celebration. Love it.
Yeah.
But when you get Antonio Brown on a helicopter and backing up the Brinks, just
what about like I think Edgerrin James took a cab one year to Rose Holman.
That's pretty funny.
Paid the cab driver. Yeah, Reggie Wayne getting off a dump truck.
Even towards the end with Reggie, I was like, okay, all right.
God, man, you sound like my dad talking right now.
I don't know, man. I'm just like, it just doesn't work with me.
The best one I thought, and I'm not saying this just to rip on Joey after just saying that, but I thought when Reggie Wayne helicoptered in with the kid from IU Health, that was pretty cool. I mean,
now you're making me look bad. I forgot about the IU Health thing.
Yeah, sorry. And I honestly think the Jalen Ramsey thing is really funny.
And Jalen Ramsey just rubs me the wrong way.
Trust me,
man.
Yeah, but thank the Lord he's in Jacksonville, or else we'd hear even more. We seemingly hear about him all the time. But
now, if like Mo Alley Cox would have done that, I thought it would be hilarious. Because it's like, who the hell is this guy?
Right,
you know what I mean? And it's like that's funny.
I just think it's so funny because like it is such a big. It's probably such a sour subject for Jackson. I mean, think about their GM right now. Tom Coughlin's probably like, what is he doing?
Right.
And I find it funny. But if I were a fan of the team, I'd probably be like, oh my God, what are you doing?
It feels like Ramsey is just trying to. He's like, well, I'm Jalen Ramsey. I talk a lot. I'm loud, so I have to do something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It doesn't feel. Yeah. It didn't feel genuine to me.
Yeah, not the most organic thing, which I always found was interesting with Reggie. Reggie is not the biggest talker.
Right. Maybe that's why I never felt that bad about Reggie. I was kind of just going with the shtick there, but like it never crossed my mind like that with him because I was like, he's not a jackass.
Yeah. Okay.
I gotta clean it up. Sorry.
No, you're good, man.
From
you're good.
Andrew Kemp. Would you rather fight a Quentin Nelson-sized duck or 20 duck-sized Quentin Nelsons?
Oh my! Wait, give that to me again.
Would you rather fight a Quentin Nelson-sized duck?
Holy shit! That's a 6 foot. Let's get the exact height and weight. I think he's 6'5", 335. Or 26.
Or 20 duck-sized Quentin Nelsons.
6'5", 330 is what Colts.com lists him at. Dude, I think he's bigger than that. I think he weighs more than that. Dude, I got to take the 20 ducks.
20 ducks. Oh, for sure. Definitely.
But like, just imagining all those ducks just gnawing at your ankle.
Do they quack or do they talk like Quentin Nelson?
They talk like Quentin Nelson.
Okay.
They rap like him. They do it all like him.
Good.
That is frightening. I'm going to wake up tonight at 2 a.m. and be sweating with a Quentin Nelson-sized duck at my front door.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty easy call, but funny to think about. From Darren, over-under on Luck throwing 45 touchdowns.
Under by a couple, 43.
From Jorge, any concerns regarding Quentin Nelson? The guy seemed to have partied a lot in the offseason.
It did look like Quentin Nelson got after it.
He did. But
good for him.
That's what I'm saying.
Good for him.
I mean, we all like. It's like in year one, we're like, I wish Quentin Nelson would let loose a little bit.
Right.
And then the summer, he's like on Instagram. He's let loose. He shows up with a Fu Manchu today, and everybody's like, should we be concerned?
I didn't see the Fu Manchu coming.
Me either.
In an Old Spice shirt?
Yeah, I think it was kind of low-key ad for Old Spice.
I think he knew full well. Some people have gotten to him this offseason saying product placement is very key, young man.
Mm-hmm.
It's always funny to me. It's like the only reason we know that these guys party is because you see it on their Insta stories.
Right.
I mean, hell, for all we know, Anthony Costanzo could have had the offseason of just a bender Or I insert Adam Vinatieri could have been in Vegas the whole time.
Right. Like, what's your definition of partying? Like going to a concert in the I mean,
I
everybody
guess
does.
the Taylor Lewan, Cardi B thing. Hopefully Taylor Lewan wasn't giving him anything else. If you
I
know
still
what
need
I mean.
to listen to that episode to get some insight. The Bussin' with the Boys.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did think about that, though. When he made that announcement, I was like, ooh.
Yeah. Taylor Lewan slipped something into his AFC South brethren's drink. Good for Quentin Nelson. I don't know. I mean, the guy lives and breathes football. I think he happily enjoyed himself. Good for him. But I think that guy's pretty serious about his craft.
Yep.
I don't expect him to be doing a whole lot of that between now and February 5th.
That's why I call it the off season, man.
Enjoy it.
Yeah. Get the
You're
goof
all
off.
pro. Do you?
From Peter, should the Colts bring in Mike Daniels? Recently released by the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah. Iowa product. We were talking about that earlier today. 30 years old for Mike Daniels. I have to look a little bit closer at the scheme fit, Joey. Yeah, I know he's a very productive player when healthy. Surprising to me that Green Bay made that move. I guess a little bit tapered off last year, just 2 sacks and 10 games played. We've always mentioned that, defensive tackle might be an area to address. I guess going back to the Chris Ballard question from earlier, that could be an area that maybe should have been addressed a little bit more in the offseason. Right now, I'm going to say no on the Mike Daniels front. He's got a lot of connections around the league, but it is that one position group, though, Joey, where I'm kind of like, let's not rule it out completely.
I don't know if we got a question about this, but just curious. I saw Matt Elam was brought in.
Yeah, safety. He hasn't played in the league in a while. Yeah, I think they've done their due diligence on a lot of safeties this offseason. We saw the Jonathan Cyprien. We saw the Darian Stewart. I think they know that insurance policy at that position is needed. And honestly, with Matt Elam, it's point blank. Can you play football still? You haven't been in the league for a good amount of time.
From Jared, which group needs to step up the most for the Colts to have success this year? Wide receiver, cornerback, or defensive line?
Defensive line, yeah. If you're dominant in the trenches, that can go a long, long way.
Steven has 2 questions. One, with Funchess and Ebron in contract years, do you think there is a risk that they will complain about lack of targets, or will the locker room culture prevent that? And 2, who has the higher upside in the long term and this year, Deion Kane or Mo Alley Cox?
First question, what about Jack Doyle complaining about targets? He's in a contract year.
Does he speak? Is he a mute?
He speaks. He's a great guy. Funchess and Ebron, I think there is, if the targets and the losses, if the targets are not there and the losses start to pile up, I think it's something that we need to monitor. Pivotal year for both of those guys in the NFL. Huge seasons for both of them. So I think it's fair. I also like to think that the presence of Andrew Luck and our guy mentions, the locker room culture would nip that in the bud. His second question, higher upside, Kane or Alley Cox?
This year and long term, yeah.
Well, probably this year, Alley Cox, just because I think ACL, you just never know a guy coming back. But, obviously, long-term, it's Kane. I think you would say that about any receiver. Any receiver is going to have more upside than a tight end. So, yeah, I'll go with Deion Kane.
All right, couple more here. One from Joseph. 2 stories I haven't heard anything about this year. 1, was there a supplemental draft? 2, Colts were shredded by tight ends last year. What's the plan to improve there?
Well, to be fair to Joseph, we haven't talked really about either on this podcast. There was a supplemental draft. No picks for the Colts. I think the Washington State safety got picked. I'm not sure. I think Arizona maybe picked them. I can't say I paid that much attention to it. Okay, and then the second question is about shredding the tight, or Colts got shredded by tight ends.
Yeah, what's the plan there?
It's a good question. That's something I need to put on my notes to ask Matt Eberflus about as well. From a personnel standpoint, do you feel more comfortable guarding tight ends with maybe a Bobby Okereke or Clayton Geathers as a dime linebacker if he's on the field a little bit more? So I think that's a good question, and look, you're going to play some pretty good tight ends pretty quick.
Last one here from Daniel. How good would the Colts have to be this year to lose either or both of the coordinators to head coaching jobs next year?
How good would they have to be? Wow,
Yeah.
that's a good way to word that question. Who was that, Daniel?
Daniel Webb.
Nice job, Mr. Webb. They got to get the Super Bowl. Yeah. I think they got to get the Super Bowl. I don't know how close Nick Sirianni is to being a head coach. I know the hot young coordinator is everything, and that's the craze, and everyone wants that in the NFL, but he doesn't call the plays. So I just think you would have to do it on a multiple year basis before you could look at it and say, hey, Nick Sirianni, he's going to get a head coaching job. Matt Eberflus, I know, interviewed with the Browns. Now, he's the other side of the spectrum in terms of, what is it going to be like when an owner is hiring a defensive head coach, which doesn't seem to be the norm or anywhere near the trend nowadays. So that's why I say you got to get to the Super Bowl, because to lose both your coordinators to head coaching jobs in one offseason, that's pretty darn rare. So I think you at least got to get to the Super Bowl.
All right, man. That's all I got over here.
But then again, if you get to the Super Bowl, then that complicates like interviews and all that.
Yeah,
when
we've
you
seen
can
that
do
before.
It. Yeah. Not to bring up a sour subject. All right, couple more here, Joey, before we wrap up. I know this is running long. David, as other NFL teams make roster cuts down to 53, what positions will the Colts be most active in? Maybe wide out, definitely O-line, D tackle. What about linebacker? Maybe safety? Greg, is there any particular team you think the run game should be emphasized against? Looking at the Jags because of their great pass D. That's a good point. I haven't really looked too specific at each roster. And this is something we can get into maybe on future podcasts. But in terms of like Howard Mudd and how that run game could look different, basically how I have learned it's going to be different is in pass sets for the Colts offensive line, they're going to be more aggressive in setting those pass sets, whereas the run game, they want to be, and patient probably isn't the right word, but they just want to get their technique under their feet, if you will, be in a good base from a technical standpoint when they engage and when they try to block. That is more run game specific. So hopefully that is some clarity. It probably isn't. All right, let's go with two more, man. Clayton, a training camp variation of marry one, love one, kill one, cut one, sign one, as in keep them on the practice squad, or as in keep them on the 53-man roster, and practice squad one. I kind of like this.
Okay.
So we're gonna cut one.
Yeah.
We're going to keep them.
Uh-huh.
We're going to put one on the practice squad. Reese Fountain, Kamoko Toure, Spencer Ware.
Cut Spencer Ware, Fountain on the practice squad, and
Toure in the 53.
Toure in the 53.
I think the only person with practice squad eligibility is Reese Fountain. I don't think Toure has practice squad eligibility. So I'd put Fountain on practice squad. I'd probably cut Toure and keep Spencer Ware.
Woo hoo 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 hoo.
That's dumb. Is that dumb?
No. I mean, let's hear reasoning. You just
injuries at running back, attrition. I like Al-Qadim Muhammad and Ben Banagoo. You need to see, you need to try and groom that.
Yeah, I guess I just.
I mean,
like
trust me. In terms of long term, people are going to be like, Kevin, you're an idiot.
Yeah.
But I like Jordan Wilkins. I don't know. Now that
I do. Yeah.
Now that I've talked out loud for like 45 seconds, maybe not.
He's a second round pick. Last year.
Yeah, but I mean, look at Terrell Basham. He was a 3rd round pick 2 years ago, and he got cut in October last year.
Huh.
Terrell Basham got cut a little over a year into his NFL career with the Colts. Kamoko Toure would be cut right around a year into his NFL career.
It was 2 years with Basham.
Basham was a 2017 draft pick, 3rd rounder. Was it 2 years? Yeah. 2017 3rd round pick, and he got cut in his 2nd NFL season.
Okay. You're right.
Anything else, man?
No, sorry, I got a banking issue here. I'm trying to figure out, so I apologize for
No,
tuning
you're
out.
good, man. Well, let's wrap it up for more reasons than one. All right, 1075thefan.com. We have up there a couple written pieces from today. Our YouTube channel, is it 1070 The Fan still on YouTube?
Yep.
1070 The Fan on YouTube. We will have daily video recaps from camp. So that's your 3-minute version of the podcast. Go there. You can get that daily. I'll embed that into some stories as well. Obviously, you know where to find me on Twitter and all of that. And we're going to have big, juicy notebooks, just like big, juicy hamburgers. We're going to have some meaty.
Just want to sink your teeth in.
You do.
Slap some barbecue sauce on them.
Talk to me. We're going to have notebooks daily on the website and podcast-wise, once every 5 days. 5-ish days. That it's a very loose term. Obviously, if something newsy happens, we might have to make a little beeline down here to MS Communications. He's Joey Molinaro. I'm Kevin Bowen. Training camp is here. We cannot wait, and hopefully we're back Monday morning. First off day for the Colts. Enjoy it, guys.
All right, I'm done here. Whatever.